Hello everyone, welcome to AU Diggers on YouTube. This video today is going to be a little bit longer than usual. It'll be about 50 minutes in total, but it's full of a lot of good information, especially if you're going to be mining in the Arizona area. We were fortunate enough, while I was at the last LDMA outing in Arizona, that's Stanton, Arizona, on October 2018, we were fortunate enough to have a BLM officer come on out and speak to the miners. She talked about, rules and regulations and different things, different kinds of forms and to fill on out for the type of mining that you're going to be doing. But instead of going into all that, I'm going to go ahead and just shoot it on over to what I filmed, so that way you can see for yourself, and so you can hear the discussion and the questions that were asked and her answers and stuff like that. I'm going to just throw it on over there right now. So here you can see people still coming on in. The room's already pretty much full, but you still have a few stragglers coming on in right here. And up front here, you can see Geologist Shelby Cave with the BLM office. And shortly here, you'll have John will introduce her to the group. Now, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you don't, well, you don't have to give me a thumbs up. But I appreciate it, and I hope you find this very, very interesting. I did, and I'm not even from the area. But a lot of good information. Check it on out, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody, this is Shelby. Cave. Shelby Cave. So she's going to answer some questions. She's going to go over some stuff first, kind of give you the general stuff, and then we'll open it up for questions. Be nice to the...
You can see me later for the other stuff. My name is Shelby Cave. I'm the hard rock geologist for the Hacienda Field Office. I really appreciate the opportunity I know a lot of you, but it's nice to touch base with the LDMA and the other groups that are here. So I'm just here. It's informal, meet and greet, just an exposure to the regs that are on the federal land out here. I reached out to the State Land Department. They sent me some brochures and some business cards, but I'm not an expert on the state land, but I can tell you who is. There's just me for all of Hacienda, so that's 900,000 acres plus a couple 100,000 acres of split estate, so it's 1 million acres. And so just FYI, when you contact me, please contact me, but there's often a backlog. I have 2 phone numbers. One of them is kind of for the public and one of them is for operators. And one of them I answer a lot quicker than the others, so you're welcome to get that number. And you can always write me through email. That's a really good way to touch base with me. So there's a lot of land out here is federal, right? And even the private surface out here, some of it's Stock Raising Homestead Act, so that's federal mineral. The Grantons in the 90s applied for the federal mineral patent for a lot of their sections, like 11 and half of 22, so that's full private. But section 1 up here where the road goes through, that's split estate, so that means the surface is private, but it's still federal mineral underneath, so you still got to go through our regulations if you want to do mechanized earth moving. So all the claims are handled down at the state office for the entire state. So all of my claims are not handled by me, they're handled through the state office, the office downtown. Anytime you want to do anything that is beyond, you want to develop your claim. So if you want to do mechanized earth moving, explosives, chemicals, or you're selling anything off your claims, then that goes through me. And that's for mining. If you want to do quarry type operations, then there's another set of regs and another geologist for that. And that goes through Rob Ernst, who's, I have some of his business cards. Just be aware that there's a difference. So if you want to sell boulders, that actually has off of federal land, you have to do a negotiated contract or a competitive bid, depending on how much you want to put out. So stuff like that. So, but if you want to develop in any way or do any mechanized earth moving, then you have to file notice with me. So pretty straightforward. It is. You're going to cringe when I say we do an environmental analysis. It is federal land, so we do have to check for threatened, endangered, and archaeological resources. But the thing about mining is it's an old mining law. We don't do full NEPA analysis, so it's a pretty straightforward permit. I'm supposed to get it done in 15 days. I try really hard. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't, but I get it usually done in 30. So that will cover you for most things until you actually want to do an operating mine plan. And that requires full NEPA analysis. It takes a couple of years to process. But just doing a step above casual use. So when I talk about you need a notice, it's mechanized earth moving, chemicals, if you're selling things, and that will cover you up to 5 acres of disturbance and 1,000 tons of processed ore. So that's about 650 bank yards. If you think about it, if you're doing placer operations, you can run into that limit, right? It's really not that many, that's really not that big of a hole. So with placer, the limit that they often run into is the tonnage limit, and that's for the life of the notice. You renew those every 2 years, but you don't reset the limits. So if you want to do more than 1,000 tons, that's a full mine plan. So and this only applies to federal land. So if you're doing drilling programs and things like that, it's a 5-acre limit that tends to be the limit that limits people because of the road construction that's involved in building drill roads and things. So that's a little bit of a whirlwind tour of what federal regs are like. Do you guys have specific questions about this area? Go ahead.
What's the biggest motor you can use
For
for digging?
Without an NOI
Right.
motor,
for casual use.
so casual use is anything that is mechanized. And there's been some talk about, so that includes even an auger on the back of the ATV. And there's been some talk about what to do with suction dredges, because there's been a lot of different guidance given to the prospectors over the years. And for clarification, last year my state league came out and said all suction dredges, no matter what size, how many horsepower, what diameter, need a notice. It's a really simple process. Like I said, you do have to bond for notices, and that's a reclamation bond. And that says that you'll clean up when you're done. And if you clean up, you get the bond back. There's an estimator online of how much the bond would be, so it's a set amount. I don't just make it up, I promise. And you just fill it in, and you can go in and change different things. It's an Excel spreadsheet. I can walk you through. If you're not used to Excel, I can show you how to do it. Or you can just go download it and do it yourself, and you can get an estimate of how much that bond might be. And then you know, well, if I do a 9-foot road, the bond is way less than a do 11-foot road, and that can be a minor difference that can really help you with with the bond amount. So.
How about for handheld? Because a lot of folks in this room are casual mining. And,
Yeah. If it's handheld, you don't need to see it.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
So you're worried about things that are pulled by trailer or towed by an ATV?
The only time you run into notice activity, and most of the groups are really good about this, if it's handheld, the only time you run into notice is if the accumulated damage starts to be too much. So if you close your holes behind you, I'll never come find you. So if it's a popular area, if people work it a lot, and you're starting to get, damage that's not being filled back in and a lot of surface cleared, then I might have to file a notice. I might have to ask people to file a notice and bond for all that damage. If you clean up after yourself on these casual use areas, then anything handheld will be on the scene.
Mr. Greg Rushford claims,
Yep,
do you know who he is?
I do.
He claims he owns 90% of the mineral rights under this whole area, including all these private properties. Is this true?
So Greg Rustin has a bunch of claims, and he does own some private parcels. Most of this up here is Grantham's. He does own part of over by Octon. And the other thing to know, so to close off the surface, and we can always do a check. I can pull up Yellow County. They have a map of who owns what of the surface. So it's public knowledge, and we can pull it up. He does have something over by Section 1. But a lot of what I have seen, so I haven't gone through each parcel and looked, but the ones I've worked on, it's mostly Grantham Brothers.
Well, that gentleman has kicked people off of our patented property over here saying they
It
can't
is.
get the money.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's public, so you can go and show who owns the surface, you can click on it. He does have a lot of stuff, he has stuff down in the river, house down to the river, and he does own a lot of parcels, private.
But how can he own the mineral rights on a patented claim that's owned by somebody else?
If it's patented, if it's no patent claim, I don't think he does, but we can always run that through our lands department. So a good contact, if you give me the township range and section, I can check it. We run it through our lands department. I know a way to check it, but I'll verify it with our realty group, and I can figure out who has it. So with Stock Raising and Homestead Act, it can be separated where it's private, it's not really a patent. The sections sometimes are private, and then underneath that, that's federal. The patents that are 1,600 feet long, it's 1,500 feet long and 600 feet wide, usually you have the private surface and private minerals underneath, usually on a patent like that. But we can always verify it. He does, I'm just gonna tell you one other little nuance that I know with Mr. Rustin's claims. There's the old style patent claims, which are essentially private land. There's unpatented claims, which is mostly what you're dealing with here. Unpatented claims before 1955 have a little more surface rights. So on an unpatented claim that's modern, you can fence it off if you have an active notice and you file occupancy concurrence with us, and we look at each individual project. So every once in a while, someone will put up a fence or a gate on public land and it's legal. There's about a dozen of those that I monitor, so you can always call me and ask me if it's legal. The other thing is, if you have a really old, if you have a continuously unpatented claim from before 1955, those have more surface rights. You can fence those off if you're doing active mining. In certain situations, I'm just letting you know that there's two flavors of unpatented mining claims. They're a little different, and you can restrict some access on those real old claims, and there's a lot of those around here because of occupancy.
Pat Keene owns the property across, almost 25 acres.
Yep,
And then Lloyd Blackburn has the piece over there.
okay,
Gina Warren Lansing has the next piece over
Yep.
there. And Don and Brenda have the piece across the road. And he has gone and told all those people, I own 90% of the mineral rights under this ground. You own 10%. You can't dig anywhere on that ground. And he's
Okay.
telling everybody that,
So-
besides here.
that's something that just, see me after, and I'll look it up. And it depends on how the patent's written for their Stock Raising and Homestead Act, and it can apply to, gravel is different than mining, and we can look it up and just see the history, because you can request that, or it can be federal. It might still be federal, I can check, because I know it's still federal in most of section 1.
And if it is federal, he could actually claim it over top of a homestead. He'd just have to work the access out with the owner, is that correct, or is that a longer conversation?
So, you can say, yeah, split state is so much fun. So, if you have an agreement with the surface landowner, you don't have to talk to me on split state, on specifically only Stock Raising and Homestead Act. Not other split estate that's federal minerals, but that particular split estate, if the surface is Stock Raising and Homestead Act, and you have an agreement about surface disturbance with that operator, or the owner of the surface, you don't have to see me. If you cannot reach an agreement, you can file, I think it has to be a mine plan, we may be able to file a notice, I think you have to file a mine plan with me, and there's a way to get to that and bypass the surface owner if you put up a reclamation bond and you go through the full permitting process. But if you have an agreement with the surface owner, it's one of those cases where I don't get involved. It's one of those rare cases where federal minerals might be the only thing I can think of where you'd had mechanized earth moving and you wouldn't talk to me. But that's only if you have it in writing with the operator, with the surface landowner, and it's only for that particular type of split estate.
Well, I've asked Greg to show me papers,
Okay?
and he has never shown papers.
Well, this seems like something, we can look that up pretty easily. I just don't happen to know it off the top of my head. I know there's people in my office that do.
And I talked to Pat about it over there, and he said Greg has told him that he owns it, and Pat can't do any work on that. And I think Greg is wrong.
There's a chance he applied for patent for the federal, and I don't know about it. So we can look it up.
Well, I called the BLM office down there in Phoenix, and they said they don't know anything about it.
I can look it up, talk to me, and then, Deer Valley.
Shelby, why does it take so long, when I file a claim, and I've had this claim for a couple of years, and then Mike goes down and files a claim right on top of mine, why can't the BLM look in there and say, oh, you can't do that because Karen already has that claim?
It's a good question. I don't really have an answer for that one. I'm sorry. I wondered that myself because my life gets a little complicated up here. There's 3 levels of claims on something. And then one little sliver is okay and this part is not. I don't have access to that database. I can see the same amount as you can through the LR 2000. And so when I'm processing notices, I've wondered the same thing myself. I can get you some contact information for the claim adjudication people in the state office, and maybe they have a better answer than I do.
Okay.
I filed a claim, and then 3 days later, somebody filed a load claim over my patent.
Oh, you're a placer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that legal, and is it legal the other way as well?
Yeah, and you have equal rights
So,
to the thing that you claim.
Right.
So placer includes the placer materials. It can include tailings in some situations, or waste rock. And then the load is to the things that are in the bedrock.
And that's federally regulated, you can do placer overload and load over placer. But the state of Arizona forbids it, I believe. There's a state law that says they won't, the county will not accept the reporting of load over placer, placer over load.
Okay.
Whoever did it first.
I have the state land contact for that, but
So I'd be
federally,
interested, that's what I was
it's
told.
equivalent.
And, but if that's not the case, then, yeah, I'd love to know more about it.
Yeah, actually, I should start making a list of these questions and then I can send it to you.
Well, if
Because
you
these
give
are
me
great
the contact,
questions.
I'll make a phone call. 'Cause
Okay.
I know some of these questions, like the Phoenix office operations and LR 2000, that's not you.
Yeah,
You're-
but I can look it up and I should know. So these are great questions and I'm sorry I'm not the person that's in part of that section, in charge of that, but I can look it up and find out because it affects my life too. So as soon as you told me that, I'm like, that's news to me, so I should look that up.
I have one question.
Okay.
Which date and stamp time code do you guys use, the county or the BLMs?
I'd probably be alone, but I can verify that.
Because we're being told that the county one is the most important, and then you hear somebody else say, no, it's the BLM's the most important, so we're not sure
And it might
who
depend
to file
on
first.
if it's most important for what.
legal parts is legal of the claim that the.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
who owns
for
it first?
When two
placer
people claim
part.
over each other,
Whose stamp is it?
my understanding is that the county is, that the judge is
Yeah.
a state representative or state court, and they tend to go by the, and again, this is just what I've been told.
So is this placer overload or just junior locators?
No, this is just placer over placer. This is two people fighting
Okay,
over a
junior
claim.
locators,
Yeah.
yeah. So the other thing that's part of that is whether you have discovery, right? Because placer is different than low, but it has to be a valid claim, it has to be located properly, it has to have discovery. You have to show that you assayed for gold, or you showed that, so it's not just the timestamp, but it's also how valid the claim is. So, but,
So say you've both done all that work, you've done it all,
mhm.
but one's 2 months, 2 years, usually sometimes a couple of days faster than somebody else getting all the rest of this stuff done.
Okay, that's a really good question, and I can call the state office and see how they handle it.
We have a lot of that going on out
Oh,
here.
I know.
So that, yeah, that's 90 days, because the BLM, what's happening out here very commonly is people will come out from September to December,
Yep.
and they date their notice September 1st, and they file it with the BLM. And so we have guys that are out here on September 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th, depending on the day that it opens, getting new claims that are going forfeit or didn't get and they go out and they put the papers out and they put the posts up and they do it and they go and they file it. And then someone from Colorado sends a piece of paperwork to the BLM dated September 1st and paper files over. And that's very common here. And it's very hard to mitigate, because you end up with people out there yelling at each other when this is my claim, I have valid paperwork from the BLM, well, both of them. And they're both dated the same day.
Right, I think things are located on the ground and have priority over things that the paper, but these are really good questions. I don't adjudicate mining claims, and it's actually very, as you can tell, it's very detailed, so I don't want to speak for them and misspeak, but I can make a list of questions, and this is the area where I see a lot of this, so it'd be great to figure out some of these details and get you an answer.
Steering back to a question more about how do you decide, or how do you, because we get super creative, this group especially, on how we mine, because there's some folks in here who, just aren't capable of slinging a shovel all day long and carrying a 5-gallon bucket. So they'll put the dump buckets in the ATV and move their stuff over to the dry wash, because, carrying that dry wash up the hill, physical capability.
Is that mechanized earthmoving?
Yeah, so how do you, and my question is more specific, is do you go look at the damage to the ground and that's really your concern? Or are you concerned with somebody maybe who might try to put a blade on the front of their ATV to push some rocks aside or something like that?
So blade on front of the ATV or UTV would be, carrying those buckets would not.
Okay, so just moving dirt across the claim to make a pile so that you can sit down when it cools off and dry wash is not a big deal.
I will say that for casual use, it doesn't give you just free reign to take an ATV off trails for the federal government. And that's actually the real issue you're running into with casual use is like trail proliferation, the deserts, because, federal tends to protect resources. And one of the things we care about is the desert, the cryptobiotic soil, the algae, and disturbing the desert because it doesn't recover very fast. You look out there and be like, oh, this is a wasteland. But it's actually pretty sensitive because it is a desert and it doesn't recover. And so on federal land, we care about that. So for casual use, we encourage people to stay in active washes or on established tracks, even if you're using the ATV that way. And so it doesn't mean you can just go anywhere and do a lot of damage, even if you're not digging with mechanized. So that's the main thing. And I've asked really specific questions about that. Like, they encourage like hand carts with little buggy carts and all sorts of stuff. But that's what you're really running into with the ATV traffic on casual use.
Okay.
For mechanized,
Yep.
is there a difference between a gas engine compared to electrical?
No, it's just more about kind of the blade and the auger, and if it's motorized transport of those digging mechanisms. So,
Looking at having a portable sluice
yep.
with a gas engine on it, that would be okay?
Yeah, the sluice would be okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
the sluice
how
would
about
be okay.
small hand carried trommels, things like
Yeah.
that?
That would be okay. That would be casual use as long as you're, not doing too much damage.
So,
I really appreciate that question and clarifying when it's needed.
so the 5 horsepower rule or 9 horsepower rule?
It went away.
It went away? It went away?
It was too vague. And
Well, that's,
so
yeah, because we've heard 13, 9, and 5.
I've heard
Depending on who you're talking
3-inch
to.
diameter, I've heard, there was a lot of different directives that were given out over the years.
So if you catch me out there with an 8 horsepower motor, but it's just running a little handheld trommel, that's not going to be it.
Right, that's casual use.
Okay.
Unless you've left a bunch of holes behind. And then that's a notice.
Okay.
See, you're messing my loophole
I,
up. That was in the before the many years and you're now, you're 5 horsepower, that's.
notices are too bad. Notices are easy to file. It's mine plans,
They're expensive.
well, there's a reclamation bond, but you get it back. So there's no fees, there's no royalties for us. It's different at state land department. So this is all for federal, so just be aware there's state land out here, and their goal is to make money for the schools. So they have a different process than us. They do some research checks, but it's different. They have different goals. So.
And as far as the whole goes, like we've been talking about here lately a lot as a group, was 45 intervals or burying, if it's in the bank, then at least 45, that's either
an egress route, so if animals get in there, they can get out and they don't drown when it's wet. So, but there's a reclamation handbook for bigger, like high wall questions, but for the small holes, I just ask for natural contours when you're done, and make sure that the animals don't just drown every time there's water in the thing. I
Well,
mean,
basically,
I'm
fill
short,
back
so
in.
I have to be able to walk out.
Basically, fill it back in, make sure that.
Yeah, natural contours, that's all. In most cases, you would also revegetate, or revegetation in Arizona takes 3 to 5 years. So if you can, in certain situations, especially with a notice, and there's cactus there, we ask if you can try to salvage them, like scoop them up, like little ones, not big ones, don't touch the soils, they will fall on you. There's a way to do that, but mark north on it and just kind of put it to the side, make a little garden and put it back if you can. Just because it takes so long for the plants to come back here. So if you salvage some agaves or something, it helps. So,
Yeah, no, and we're talking about, for casual use, we've been told, don't touch the cactuses. And I think that's probably a
yeah,
good rule.
and that's a state regulation. So there's all those cactuses, except for a few of those prickly pears, are protected. All of them, yeah.
But
They're like four
as casual
species.
use, if we were to, let's say a barrel cactus, because they don't generally root, they, half the time you find them falling over and walking
Yes.
on the lawn. But if we were to take that and make a cactus garden on a claim, and then dig under it, and then put it back, and then put the cactus back,
I would appreciate it.
would that, yeah, I mean, there's a rumor going around that if you touch that cactus, they'll fine you $10,000.
You can't take it off the claim.
Okay.
If you take it off that claim, then there's a USDA, or is it USDA? Department of Agriculture permit, and that is separate from mining. You cannot take cactuses off of a claim. You can't take them home, and you can't sell them. If you want to do that, there is a way to permit it, but it's not part of your mining process. It's a separate thing. So if you move it around on the same claim, it's fine.
Okay, and then what is the official rule, or is there one about the SOAR? Because obviously, again, we don't, in this club, on club claims, no one's permitted to touch the cactuses, right, John?
That's correct.
We just don't, we don't want
Right,
to do
and I
that,
appreciate that.
because if there were damage to them, the fallout for the club could be, that. But there are places where we see, some people stay away from the Soros, we see places where people start to undercut the Soros.
So, under federal law, you're supposed to be compliant with all state and county and municipal. That's what it says in the notice.
So it's the state law that actually would be.
Yes. But under federal
Which is
law-
$10,000 and cost of regeneration of that cactus.
And under federal law, it's not my jurisdiction. I can't go and do anything about the cactus unless somebody from state says, hey, they've done something, it triggers it, and then I can do something. What I end up doing, it goes into the reclamation law.
What procedure do we go through if we see someone out there destroying that? What do we have to do as members?
Yeah.
Oh, so I have a lot, I have some me, but like I said, sometimes I homeschool. So there's also 1-800 number for report crimes against resources. So I have that up here. Under a notice, sometimes or my plan, they can bond for those cactuses and undermining specifically and pay for them, and pay for the damage. And so sometimes it's not illegal. It is definitely discouraged, and it's very rare that it's not illegal. But if they pay for them, if they pay market value for them, they can remove them in the mining process. It's something we can bond for.
But they ain't cheap.
So,
They ain't cheap.
no, not cheap. It's mature trees either. When I bond for that stuff, I bond for like if you were to go to like a store, like a landscaping store, and I bond for that price, that's the market value. That's pretty expensive for a mature tree or a store.
What about reseeding?
Say it again?
What about reseeding the area with the plant?
Well, our biologist in our office has a specific brand or shrub mix that he thinks works the best, so I can give you the name of that. It's something that's, we're supposed to do for notices and mine plans. If you do it for casual use, it's not required, but it would be great. Like if you guys just did it as a, you know, as a part of the landscape, like reclamation and to make sure
Yeah,
it's
you can
okay.
give me that.
Yeah, there's a native shrub mix it.
Do we do it on the golf courses, guys?
So what's the difference in the permit to bring a tractor out and the couple of year wait one that you're talking about? What's the difference between them?
So a notice covers 5 acres and 1,000 tons of processed work. And a mine plan covers everything bigger than that, or if you're selling something, if it's commercial.
So if I go and get the bond and get that permit, and I bring a tractor out, and if I do this 5 acres, but I only move, say, 20,000, and then I want to do another 5 in my 20 acres, I can do that too?
If it's considered the same,
Cover this one?
if it's, so this is a really good question, because this comes up a lot. I can't split the 5 acres between something I consider the same operation. If you run through and you reclaim it properly and get your bond back, then that is done, and you can start again. So trying to do multiple at the same time, I can say, no, this is all part of the same operation. You're using the same processing plant or something.
Well, what I mean is, if I didn't go back and get my bond right away, and I had already reclaimed this 5 acres that I'd done, and I go to do another 5 acres on the same property, is that same bond still good for that? Or do I have to go in and redo it again?
So if you reclaim it, and I come and do an inspection, and say you're over bonded now, because you fixed it, then you can take that bond and apply it.
Oh, okay.
But I have to clear it and say, yes, you've done this, now you're free to release that, and you can get it back to you, or you can apply it.
And
If it's completely
How
reclaimed.
much do bonds usually run?
Well, that's an estimator. So certain things bond pretty, like new roads are discouraged, they're bond really high, because we want you to close them. Other things that bond pretty high, if you do core drilling or RC drilling, we bond as if you're going to intersect the water table, so a full route of a drill hole. That's pretty expensive. In a lot of places out here, it would be a dry exploration hole. So these are the things that people tend to challenge on the calculator. The calculator applies to everything up to 20 acres. If it's bigger than 20 acres, there's another program that we have to use. But the calculator is really simple. It's updated every year. It's written by Fred Gross, who's a mining engineer and he's contracted through the state office. So you can play around with it and see, so for example, a tiny suction dredge, it tends to run under $1,000 for a bond. Some of these,
Backhoe on a dry piece of land where you're not opening another road.
it's like 2 to 10.
1,000?
Yeah. And then it can easily get above that if you start doing a lot of disturbance or holes. Placer, most of my placer ones are 2 to 10. A lot of the drilling ones can be up to 100. So, yeah, so. But like the small suction dredges, I have 3 or 4 of those that are under 1,000. So it just depends on.
yeah,
I'm not super happy about having like every recreation thing having to be bonded and noticed either. But it helps me keep an eye on everything, and it helps me communicate and have good communication with everyone. So, and then people learn how federal land works, and they self-police. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here because I can't keep track of all of this. And if there is a mineral trespass, I do have to, if I discover it, I do have to follow up. And sometimes, you know, I have to ask for damages, which is different than asking for a bond. Damages you don't get back, bond you do. So it's way better just to do it by the regs, and some people just don't know. So that's why I'm here. And you guys really help with that, like getting the information out. I really appreciate it because there's a lot of boards online and misinformation that floats around, and there's just changes, like with the section dredges and stuff like that. So I appreciate it. Go ahead.
I see that BLM has a new road closure proposal out on 1,600 miles. You know how it's lined out, small liner?
Are you talking about TMP?
Yeah. and-
Okay, so mining has superior access right. If you own the claim, so your name is on the claim, we won't ever close a road to the mining operator. Now, it may go to admin only, administrative access only, and there'll be a BLM type gate, like with a BLM type of lock, I forgot what the number is, but there's a universal lock. And then, but you have spear access, right? So that doesn't apply to state land or private land, so a lot of people might misunderstand that. It doesn't give an implied easement across a patent or anything like that. But on federal land, a TMP is not going to affect mining because we don't, that's considered administrative access. So even if there's a gate, if your name is on a claim behind that gate, you can get in.
So where do you get your key from?
I mean,
So because there's claims out here that we could claim up, but we don't have access to them because we're blocked.
if you're talking about up to Independence Mine, that's on private land, and I can't do anything.
No, this is out south of Octave.
Yep.
It's BLM land all the way. There is a mining operation that's gated, green gated.
Okay, so he does have an active occupancy, and he's allowed to have that gate. Is there another way in?
No,
No.
Okay,
Not that you can reach with a vehicle.
no.
okay.
Yeah, you can hike over the mountain.
Yeah, so, but, I think in that situation even with the occupancy concurrence, we need to coordinate and you need to be able to get through if you have a money claim behind it. And I can verify that. It's the BLM occupancy concurrence allows you to restrict motorized, not stop motorized access and public access. You can still walk on it. Like I said, if it's a claim that's older than 1955, it's a little more complicated. But the BLM, for a mining operation, our gates, it's still public land. And so you can still walk across it.
Yeah, because he's got no trespassing signs up, and private signs
You
up.
can't have private property. You can say MSHA required,
Oh.
access, escort across only. Yeah, so I can,
And he could gate it off through the road and then gate it to him and allow the road to continue going. It was easier to put a gate in and less fencing.
yeah, I can double, if you show me where on the map, I think I know which one, but I didn't realize they blocked the road since maybe the last time I was there.
Yeah, and we only discovered it a couple of weeks ago. We were out exploring some new ground out there. And we
So-
went, oh, we can't get to it. We had to hike
Yeah.
over the mountain.
An occupancy concurrence allows you to restrict the surface for safety reasons for the mine.
But
And
not the roads, right? The
Well-
access roads.
you can block the access road, but you can't block another, if you have a claim, you still have access
The way we
roads.
get to it now is it takes over an hour to get to it, where it's 5 minutes, it's right there.
Yeah, I'll verify when I see it leave, but if you have a claim with your name on it behind it, I think you have to be able to coordinate some way to get across.
I'll work on that, guys.
Hurry up.
There you go.
Shelby,
Yeah.
there's a lot of us that belong to different clubs like the LDMA and Roadrunner and so on and so forth. And our names really aren't on that club.
I
on that
know,
line,
right?
But we belong to the organization, so does that still give us access to that?
I have wondered that myself, and I haven't actually, I think if you're wearing a badge, I hope that means that you could.
Okay,
But
what about?
let me find that out,
Right
because
on.
that's a really good question, because Roadrunners or LDMA has a lot of these.
Well, right along with the same question is sometimes claim owners, and we got one in here, Mike, right there, leases it or releases it to us, signs documents to the club, not to any individual.
Yeah.
So it's actually leased to the club.
So my instinct says it's fine, but I don't want to say that before I run it past the state lead, who's the mining law expert. Because I've wondered that and I just haven't tracked it down.
So
myself.
maybe that'll be the deciding factor instead of making sure, not putting it in members' names
Well,
like we do, but get it in a member's name and then have them open it to the club. Maybe
There
that-
may be a case, there may be already a case law related to this
Right.
that I'm not familiar with, so I'll look it up and make sure that, because if anybody set a precedent, then that's going to affect us.
Right.
So.
You're gonna get real busy here with these things.
Oh, that's okay. So if I do it as a group and answer all these questions at once, it's better than answering them like 30, 40 times separately.
Right.
So and these are good questions.
Like on a suction dredge, and you get your bond on it, how long is the bond good for?
Until you're done. So when you decide to close your operation, so the bond, it's just when you decide to reclaim, you get the bond back. And notices are 2 years, and then you can renew them indefinitely. But those limits apply for the entire life of the bond, not every 2 years. They don't reset.
And how
So-
much is the notice?
The notice is the bond estimator that's online.
Depends on
So,
what you're planning to disturb.
So it just goes like a bond, it's not a
yeah,
separate.
there's no fee, there's no
Okay.
royalties. And there's not even, believe it or not, there's not even a form for this. It's like the only thing in government that doesn't have a form. There's a list of questions, I have it with me, the regs, there's a list of questions you answer. You submit a map, a reclamation cost estimate, and just the details about your operation. And it's just a list of questions.
And I'm asking a question because I actually want to know, I know, you know Truman.
Yes.
Truman's had an NOI for however many years he's been out there.
Since the 90s.
Yeah. Is there a point where you go, hey, guys, I'm sure at this point you've moved more than 650 yards of material? Or is that something, I'm just
Once they
asking,
hit the
at what
limit.
point do you go, okay, guys, it's time to move to a
So I've asked about the time limit, because exploration, this is really a step to move towards mining. Like, we want mines and jobs and stuff, and it should be like the step to figure out, to develop the mine. And so these indefinite occupancies, which are basically kind of squatting for 30 years and doing just enough, like I say, run your equipment when I show up for the inspection, and, you know, I can't, it's really not allowed. I have a lot more serious things. I'm just being blunt. I have things that involve law enforcement and meth labs and dangers to public and danger to resources. And somebody is not doing a lot of damage. If I had nothing else to do, I'd be like, come on, you gotta do something here.
Okay.
And so it's just me, and they end up being at the bottom of the list, but it's not really allowed.
And that's really what I'm asking, because I'm
But if you
looking-
hit that 1,000-ton or 650 bank yards, and it's visible, the tailings are on, the placer tails are there, then I close it. Some people have figured out to not have their placer tails on their notice. So, things like that. So if they hit a 5 acre or 1,000 tons,
And I guess that's my, because I'm working on an NOI with you, and I want to do it, and I want to move it to a plan that is significantly more
yes.
involved, and I want to make sure that it's even financially feasible before I go through all of that.
And we would encourage you to do that.
But I just wanted to see at what point, because honestly, if I set up the way I want to, I think I can move 650 yards in a couple months.
It doesn't take long. I
Yeah.
mean, it's basically a 1.1 yard on a 420 cat, you know, to run it.
And so at what point do you come out and go, Fred, I gotta cut you off, you know?
So basically a 30 foot by 30 foot by 30 foot hole. Once I see that, then it's done. I've cut people off. So,
So
and-
please don't make any 30-foot deep holes.
yeah. But with the placer operations, you really do run into that limit. If you're really actually doing
And
it.
that's even including our casual guys that go out there.
If it's reclaimed, if I saw a hole that was casual use, that if I saw like 30.
Right, that equaled up.
Yeah, yes, that would be a notice.
Or
and
if you went out there and everything's reclaimed the way it's supposed to be,
then it doesn't trigger anything.
see?
Yeah.
Right?
That
Fill in your hole.
person's already gone. Yeah, but we're having to fill his holes.
Yeah, I see people do that, like filling behind. I see people cleaning out claims, it wasn't them, and I appreciate it. I
You got
see
that
it,
situation. This is,
and I notice it, so.
this is why you're here. We
Yeah.
have this situation. We had
Oh,
a
yeah, dear, I'm sure you
bring
do.
in the person that went out there and was stupid. And we all, as members, have to go clean this up now because we don't want you to come down and say you're done.
Yeah, so I had to ask for a bond and a notice, and it's
See?
paperwork you don't want.
First of November,
Yeah.
everybody.
Okay, but on one of my claims, when I claimed it, there was holes there already. They're
Yeah.
not deep, and they are in a wash,
Okay.
so they will be filled in. But, when it rains, there's also was trash there, a bunch of it.
Yeah.
Am I responsible for all the past people that had this property?
So that's a really good question. So if you have a notice, I'll come out and take a picture and show that that was already there, and it won't go into your reclamation bond unless you touch it and then you own it. But if you have a shaft or an attic, you're still, and you claim that, you're still legally responsible if someone gets hurt.
Okay.
So-
There's no shafts on it, it's all placed.
If you can, a lot of people do just clean it up, so it's never a question. and I appreciate it when people do that. So the BLM likes, okay, as a geologist, I don't like when things are reclaimed because it hides all the information, the tails and the dumps, but as a federal hat, we want everything back to natural conservation. So, and if you don't have to clean that up, if it's not a safety hazard. We appreciate it if you do.
Yeah,
But you
if I
don't.
wanted to clean it up, but it's a lot of work to do it by hand, and I wanted to bring a tractor in to reclaim it, then
If
what?
there's a blade, we have to run it past us. And that includes road maintenance, so that's an issue since we don't have a grader anymore at the BLM. And Yelpi does a great job, and I've noticed this year they've been, I don't know if the guy just lives on it, but he's,
He
Just
He does it about 6 times a year.
okay,
Yeah.
that's good out here, because they told me more.
Yeah.
I've seen them working the back roads to the Crown King, and I'm so glad they do it. We used to have an operator and a motor grader, we don't. But with mining, you have severe access, right? So this comes up a lot. If you do road maintenance and you stay within the prism of the road, no new water bars, no widening, no fixing, and you can, in some cases, get a road maintenance agreement through our field office that's pretty straightforward. It's just my field manager will look at it and decide, hey, it's okay to go ahead and clean that up. It's only on federal land, it doesn't give any approval for state or private. I need a map to do that, because a lot of people will say, oh, she approved it, and then they'll blow through berms on private land and go everywhere. So I have to have a map and show exactly where it's gonna be. With a notice, you can also fold road maintenance into your notice. And if it is a road that we don't want reclaimed, so it's a through road that goes to state land, or we need it for fire control, it's established road, you don't have to reclaim it if you don't change it. If you build a new road, that's expensive. If you build a diversion because you need it for a crossing, that's expensive. But any blade that goes on the ground, we need to make sure you're not going through ancient cities or threatened endangered species. So we don't have a lot of threatened endangered species out here. We do have yellow-billed cuckoo on some of the rivers in the lower areas, and that is threatened and endangered. We do have desert tortoise that we managed to keep it from becoming threatened and endangered. So just, we have desert tortoise handling guidelines, and most of my operators do a great job of working with us to make sure that those populations stay good so that it doesn't go below the threshold to become teeny. Because then it'll be like a sage grouse state, and you don't want it. So. All right, that's probably more than you wanted to know about federal regs. I have packets and pamphlets. I have pamphlets for mining claims. I have copies of the 38. When I say 3809, it means 43 CFR 3809. Those are the mining regulations, federal mining regulations. CFR means Code of Federal Regulations. You can find those online. It's under ECFR. You can Google it and it'll pop up. I have copies with me. I like having hard copies. I have copies of the 3715, which is 43 CFR 3715, which is the occupancy concurrence. If you need to have a watchman on the site, a trailer out there for more than 14 days, you need to put a fence or a gate in. So there's a way to do that under mining. And then I have the mining claim brochure from the federal government, and then it has the state land mining activities brochure. So, which these are useful and mostly up to date. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
True Valley in 17.
I can, yeah.
He asked where your office was.
7th Ave, Deer Valley.